Hi, I'm Jess, the founder of Positive HR.
And I'm Mikey, co-host of the Leadr Lab podcast, where we speak with leaders to learn about what inspires them to help you on your leadership journey.
Together, we'll explore the hearts and minds of leaders. We blend curiosity with insight as we learn firsthand what it takes to be a leader who truly inspires and drives positive change.
Join us as we dive deep into the art and science of human-centered leadership. Welcome to the Leadr Lab.
Tobi from Creative Cubes,
Thanks,
great
Jess.
to have you here.
Thanks for having
you.
me. Yeah.
Now, your experience has been nothing short but impressive, that's for sure.
It doesn't feel that way, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
I've listened to a few of your recent podcasts where you share about your first venture story with your now wife, Sim,
Yes.
and how you came to have 20,000 from your father-in-law and go through that journey. We're focusing on leadership today and your leadership and leadership around you. Let's jump straight into it and talk to me a little bit about how you've got to where you are today as a leader.
I'm a passion guy. So I'm not really motivated by, firstly, money, and secondly, just cause. It has to motivate me. And I remember my first venture, which was Pet Loo. I wasn't passionate about peas and poops. So Pet Loo, for your listeners, was a patch of grass and a dog potty system that people have on their balconies.
Can say I had one.
Thank you. But I was passionate about animal companionship and sort of like the benefits that one gets, having seen my wife work with animals in a hospital environment as an animal-assisted therapist and see the impact that the pet has on human beings. And so that was my sort of North Star. And we created a Pet Loo system to really combat pet ownership, increase animal companionship. I remember selling the business, and I remember lying in my bed in Beverly Hills in an apartment, not glamorous, in my bed by myself. And I just felt like someone had pulled the power out of the wall. Like you imagine your extension cords powering a lamp or your hairdryer or whatever. You sort of turn it off and pull it out and sort of goes to zero. That's what it felt like. And I kind of battled for the better part of 2 years, waking up every day passionate about what I was doing, but actually lost my purpose. The purpose that I have to have drives my leadership today. And if at any stage that gets stale, I have no ego and get out the way for other experts to sort of step in. And I've done that like 2 weeks ago. We had a massive acquisition and I've vacated the CEO role of my organization. I'm still heavily involved as the executive director, focused on brand, mission, vision, and growth. But I recognize in myself the next part of the climb, and we refer to it like a mountain. What took us from 0 to 100 meters or 100 kilometers up on the mountain is not going to take us from 100 to 500 kilometers, and so it requires a different skill set. And so whilst I'm wildly passionate about what we're doing and how we're doing it, I recognize my strengths as a leader. And a lot of that stems from my times as a basketball player. I love basketball, like a lot. And I'm happy to go out there and score 40 points if that's what coach needs for me. I'm also happy to sit on the bench and carry the water bottles and towels if that's what coach needs me to do. So there's no ego in me that sort of has to put myself first, has to get mine. And so I'm very selfless. But for me as a leader, I recognize the value that I bring to the table. I recognize the skill set, knowledge, depth. I recognize my hustle, grit, and go get them. And if I'm required to do anything outside of that laneway, it's an assist to a better shooter, a better scorer, a better blocker, a bigger person, et cetera, et cetera.
Gosh, what an introduction there, Tobi. Let's talk about the pulling the cord analogy, because I do think a lot of leaders, they can be on a high. Yep. And when they're on the high and they're running that marathon. And then they feel, like you said, depleted. They lose that sense of purpose or that connection, or, perhaps it's they're losing financials or in the strategy a goal. You talk a little bit about having to pick yourself up out of that.
Yep.
Leaders today, they might be out there feeling the same and resonating with this. How do you go about picking yourself up when times are tough or something hasn't gone to plan?
Yep. More often than not, it doesn't go to plan, just for the record. This is definitely not for the faint-hearted. To sort of circle on a couple of things, I find myself in dark times more than light and bright, yeah? And sometimes I actually we had a massive acquisition. We've doubled our sites overnight in our last transaction. And
well done. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And the amount of kudos and congratulations and people coming out of the woodwork has just been almost overwhelming, because they see the headlines. And I spent time in LA, so we call it the Hollywood Lights. I don't live in the Hollywood Lights. I don't live on the glory side. I'm deep dark in the engine room where no one dares to go, trying to power this thing up the hill, right? Or blaze the trail off road. And so there are a lot of people in my life that inspire me, and they don't have to be the Michael Jordans of the world. Firstly, my wife and my kids are just like, come on, Dad, you can do this, and I'm like, I actually can't, but if they think I can, I've got to try. I'll get reprieve and call my sisters. And my one sister, G, she doesn't let me off the hook at all. And so I'll call her sometimes and I'll be completely overwhelmed. And I love her, but her response is, yeah, quit bitching.
Well, I love that.
Yeah, you're born for this. Like, if anyone can do it, you can do it. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm that guy. And she's like, you're that guy. So now I carry this, wow, she believes in me. And then I speak to my mom and she believes in me. I've got no choice but to believe in me, right? And so I carry that. And sometimes it's a bit of a jolt in the arm, but sometimes it's really tough. And so I know it's going to be great in the end. I really do. I believe with everything I've got. So, and then there's inspiration around. So, at Creative Cubes or at any co-working space, when you see other people putting their effort and energy in, like that's got to be, that's got to be a jolt in the arm for us as well as human beings.
And do you think part of that is what led you or continues to lead you in doing joint ventures, acquiring, becoming bigger, more creative cubes, opening up as well, more co-working spaces, and creating that ecosystem for other entrepreneurs to, if they are feeling flat or they are lacking that confidence, have that community and connection for them to get maybe not family, but others around them to lift them?
That's it. Creative Cubes exists to enable success. Yeah, it's a very selfless. But what it is when I was coming up, during my Petaloo days, I felt so isolated. I felt really lonely. The accolades were scoreboard was 100-0 in every game we played. Business was booming. We're in 189 countries of distribution. I built a brand from my spare bedroom in Elwood, Victoria, to being a global behemoth. Scaled it with a $20,000 loan, turned it into $10 million of annualized revenue for 10 years. The journey itself was really lonely. It was stressful. And so the thesis for Creative Cubes was, when I first landed in Los Angeles, I had to separate my work and my play, because smush them together like we did in COVID and you have massive mental health issues and, there's no on-off switch, there's no compartmentalization. And so I moved into a co-working space, which was the old Google headquarters in Santa Monica. And I came alive. I was like, holy crap, these are my people. I didn't know anyone. I just rocked up. I saw these guys hustling and start having conversations as you spend more and more time in the space. And whilst Travis Kalanick, founder of Uber, is trying to disrupt cabs, and Evan Spiegel is trying to disrupt, with Snapchat, or maybe not disrupt, but create Snapchat in competition with Zuck at the time, and understanding the hell they're going through, I'm like, cool, these guys are my tribe. And so I think the success that I had at Petaloo was because I was surrounded by like-minded people. And if you take Evan and Travis, just as examples, they were on their own path doing their own thing, right? But just being able to see the hustle and feel it and meet their people and see their teams and go for lunch with their head of design and their head of tech and this one and that one it was exhilarating. It's the quality of relationships that sit inside. It's the people going through those challenges that you can relate to, the shared services, the partnerships, really, really inspiring spaces. So in terms of our growth, we've had massive impact in 11 neighborhoods that we operate in today across Melbourne. So long as we're having those positive impacts, I can continue to scale.
And you feel that at Creative Cubes, we've been members for 5 years or a bit more in Hawthorn, and you get that sense of community, very much so. As a leader, and you talk about, basketball team and creating teams and people and purpose-led, How do you instill what your passion is and your purpose into that broader sense of community?
I think that it's infectious. You know, you need someone to blaze the trail. And I've said that before on this pod, but I'm not looking behind me. I'm just, and in fact, my leadership team will come up and sort of like inform me that I don't look back, but there's 7 fires. We've got 9 people covering it, just as an FYI. Hey, I think you need to do this, this, and this. Got it. They pedal back. They face internally, and I just keep going on the outside, right? So for that, I think it's inspiring. I often humble myself in front of the team and say, I'm not going to get involved here because I'll mess it up. You guys know better. My opinion's appreciated and my leadership is there. I know my strengths. Yeah. And so I think that inspires people. I'm doing big things. The scale of what we do, we have 5,500 members, 11 sites, 22,000 square meters of commercial office space in Victoria. Like the scale of that is impressive to people. I'm trying to bring people, like couple years back, I brought Shaquille O'Neal to Australia. I didn't need to talk.
I was there.
Were you there?
It was a great conversation.
Yeah. So I've got more coming. I've got more athletes and incredible people coming. And it's like, I'm going to steer the conversation, but just to lead them to sort of score the points and wow the community, right?
And you talked earlier that your role now is very much focused on brand, value, purpose, growth, vision, very visionary with where you're going. You've talked about being a selfless leader as well, and I want to touch on that. How can you, as a selfless leader, still create that sense of connection within that team and bring that team together through change? So you've gone through this huge acquisition, and that is a big period of change. Change can create some people to feel non-secure and instability.
Absolutely.
How are you leading through this period of change?
Trust. Yeah. I've never done anything to hurt anyone ever. In fact, I'd rather receive the bullet than shoot the bullet. Yeah. And I've done that, and I've done that publicly, where I've taken the bullet versus shooting the bullet. During COVID, it was very easy for businesses to offload people. We didn't. We didn't because once the rebounds come, these people are really important. Moreover, they have families as well. Some of them do. And so it was really important for me to make sure everyone stayed steady. I lead by example. I've also got an incredible amount of social equity. Yeah. What I say is what I do. And what I do is what I say. And I'll do that all the way, even if I don't want it to kill me, but I will deliver on the words that come out of my mouth, no matter what. I'm not here for the money, although we're making money. And it's important to make money, and profit is definitely not a dirty word. It's important because I've got a family to support and kids to school fees and the rest of it to pay, right? But doing it in a way that is honorable and ethical is really, really important to me. And unfortunately for me, I've seen people in my teams along the journey not operate like that. Yeah, they're about themselves. If I can build a great space where people are humming and buzzing and thriving, then my job's done.
And it's interesting that, you've come across those people, because sometimes it is hard to identify those traits in an interview when you're recruiting those roles, and those, whether they be leaders or not leaders. How do you go about, because you are such a selfless leader, how do you go about that courageous or difficult conversation when that other person is perhaps not on that same journey or not demonstrating the expectations you want them to be?
Yeah, most definitely. I think you have to stay true. But if you can lead with purpose, if you can lead with data and not be emotional about it, and by the way, I'm an emotional leader. Yeah. And I recognize
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but I recognize that in myself. Some of those tough conversations, it's even tougher because there's an emotional layer to it. But at the end of the day, you either eat or you be eaten. Yeah. And I want to make sure that we do anything we have to do on the negative side in an honorable and ethical way. And that's where the social currency of my personal name has created a really robust business, because people trust me. They may not like me. I think they like me, but they trust me.
Pretty likable.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but I do it with compassion and integrity.
Look, one of the biggest pieces of advice I got as well was from a lady called Katia Gidley when I was 16. And she said, you need to control your emotions if you want to be an effective leader. And I thought, gosh, what's she talking about, controlling my emotions? I'm an emotional human being. Let me be that. But I think, as you have mentioned, yes, you can be emotional, but you have to recognize that there needs to be balance. Yep. For yourself, how do you find you balance your emotional approach to leading, but also with a commercial and a visionary strategic approach, and not have them, I guess, taint the type of leader you are?
Yeah, so it goes back to my basketball days. My coach, Ty Wiggins, who is someone I really still look up to and admire. And he's doing some incredible things outside of the sport of basketball, writing books and doing a whole bunch of things. But Ty always put me in a pressure cooker situation. So he would give me the ball in training with 7 seconds on the clock and we're down by 2, and if you're flustered with the ball and you can't make the right decision in the moment, you deserve to lose. And maybe the first dozen weeks of experiencing that, we lost. But then all of a sudden you built this muscle, not a physical muscle, but you build this muscle of tolerance and resilience. And hey, I've been in this situation before. Stay to your fundamentals. Like I'm a huge bull on Tesla. I'm a huge bull when it comes to Nvidia and Apple. I don't know if you paid too much notice to the stock market this week, but it absolutely shat the bed.
Yeah.
And people are selling left, right, and center. And I'm sitting there buying. And I'm sitting there buying not because I think only the fools are rushing in, but actually nothing's changed with the businesses. The fundamentals are there. The leadership is there. The market might ebb and flow. The pressure might dial up. It might be too hot to go outside or too cold to go outside. But the fundamentals are there. And so toggling back to Ty, being in those pressure cooker situations time and time again, I constantly remind myself, we're down by 1. I'm on the free throw. Clock is finished. I've got 2 shots. If I pay attention to the rah-rah behind the basket trying to put me off, we deserve to lose. If I can stay focused and go, Tobi, I've shot this ball in this situation 5,000 times before. Let's do 5,001 and 5,002. We can win. And, the late Kobe Bryant, whilst everyone looks up at who Kobe was, Black Mamba mentality and all that sort of stuff, I got to see a different side of Kobe before he passed. It's been truly inspiring. And also sitting with Shaquille and you're in the room, he recognizes his strengths that he brings to the table. My father-in-law, I was at dinner with him last night. He's still quoting Shaq from 2 years ago. He's like, Shaq prides himself on being the dumbest person in the room and making sure that the people that he's got on the team can execute the job. But if they throw the ball to him, he's going to be the most dominant person in the role. Growing up in an environment where Coach Ty was constantly creating these pressure cooker situations, I just take my mind back to those environments. And then similarly, just before I interviewed Shaq, which went viral, big moment. I remember my meditative state for my 10-year wedding anniversary, which was 11 years ago now. I took my wife to Qualia.
I was just there last week.
My God.
It's gorgeous.
I think about Qualia all the time. And it's been 10 years since I've been there.
Wow.
And I saw this whale just frolicking in the bay and just jumping out and splashing about and all the rest of it. And so when I think about pressure, I take my mind not to you're down by 2 with the clock out and you're at the free throw line to win the game. I think about the whale jumping out of the water, having the best time of his life on the Great Barrier Reef, in the most calm waters you could possibly see, in the most tranquil waters you could ever see. And it brings a sense of calm to me. And so I honestly, before a big call or before a big stage event, whether it's going on radio or interviewing Shaq, and soon to be a bunch of others in bigger environments than Shaq, because I cut my teeth with Shaq, I sit there and I think about that whale and I just get calm. All right, I'm ready to go.
What a memorable moment. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about pressure, because I do think that there are organizations out there where I speak to a lot of executive leaders and they say, I want my people to feel the pressure a bit more and I want my people to come on the same pace as me, and they're not getting there and they're not keeping up. How do you, with yourself feeling that pressure, How can you get some of your, junior leaders or sideways leaders, however you'd like to call them, your support mechanisms, to take some of that pressure, but also just to understand the pressure and use that to thrive towards high performing?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like, there's no silver bullet here, right? So it's just a repeat of, hey guys, we're going to do this. Are you all strapped in? Because I'm ready to go and I'll lead. Just don't drop the ball. And we refer to the business as a baby. Yeah. And we refer to it as we've got to grow the baby, we've got to nurture the baby, we've got to cuddle the baby, you've got to put in cotton wool. Whatever you do, do not let the baby touch the ground. And, I trust my people and my people trust me. And some of them have small pieces of equity in the business because I know what that'll do for them if we're successful. And I didn't do this for me. I'm doing this for like the greater good of everyone, even yourself as a member. I want to make sure that you have a nice, safe, happy place to come to work. Hence the happiness team. I lead with transparency. I lead with integrity. I lead with honesty. People know the impact. The people understand the pressure. I don't shield any of that. And sometimes it's not for them. And sometimes we have to see people go. I've got a couple of people of staff leaving us now. And all I say is, I hope you're better professionally, skill-wise, mindset-wise, the day you leave us than the day you started. And if that's all it was, and it was a 12-month thing or a 4-year thing, so long as you leave better than when you started, I feel like my time with you has been a success. I don't need them to all run marathons, just like I don't need everyone on the team to be the size of Shaquille O'Neal. You know what I mean? Like,
he is tall.
He's massive. He's massive. But the reality is, if we were all massive like that, I think we'd lose more games than we'd win. But it's the sort of sharing the ball and playing to people's strengths that I think bring the success. And it's been challenging. Like, if you don't think I'm in hell almost 7 days a week, like, there's a reality check. Like, it's hell on earth.
And you talked about being comfortable, and you've spoken about belonging, and you've spoken about the happiness element, which is, we see it when we walk into creative cubes. It's the first thing you see, and instantaneously, I know I do, I feel happy. How do you create teams where everyone might have different opinions, different perspectives, different cultural backgrounds, different beliefs, and have them feel like they belong and have them feel comfortable?
Such a great question. And again, I don't have a magic silver bullet here. However, I can tell you, when I go to the basketball or even the footy, you've got all types of walks of life yelling, wildly passionate about their team and the sport.
Collingwood.
Well, we're in Collingwood, so yes. And I like Bucks. Nathan Buckley is a mate of mine, but I know nothing about footy. But the point is that all walks of life go into those stadiums and sport. And you go to a basketball, if you go to MSAC here in Albert Park, you can look at any basketball team and there'll be such diversity there. And they're all there because they love the game. They're chasing this ball. They're trying to put the ball in the hoop. Business is no different. To me, business is no different. I see it through the sporting lens, which is basketball for me, but it's cool. You're XYZ and you're from Queensland and you're from Sri Lanka and, whatever. And I think that politics, and I'm talking about like corporate politics and red tape, I think that, the bigger you are, the harder it is. But at the same time, like, just be human. Just like actually give a shit and just don't clock in, clock out. And maybe if you are doing that sort of thing, then maybe you should look at what you're doing. Because I can tell you, when I saw my business, it was like all the purpose was sucked out of me. And I found myself struggling for 2 years to really refine what really lit me up.
I think you hit a point there, though, about the clock in, clock out that I want to touch on. We work with a lot of managers, and I think I'd probably say about 5 times last week, I had 5 different managers say, my people are clocking in and clocking out, and I want them to give more, I want them to be more. What advice do you give to those leaders?
Are you leading by example? So stop looking like, it's so easy to push problems to somebody else. Yeah, but look at yourself first. Am I leading correctly? But if you're asking something of me, like, I better be getting it from you in return in some form or fashion. And so the clock in, clock out, yeah, I appreciate, like, different people in our organization have got kids and they have to do pickups. I do the drop-offs in the morning. Sim does the pickups in the afternoon. Sim's in early, I'm in late because I take that time with my kids in the morning. But like at the end of the day, you know, I've seen too many basketball games. Sorry to bring you back here. You're going to be basketball expert by the end of this.
I think so.
Yeah. I've seen too many basketball games, not won by the other team, lost by my team. Yeah. And that's because they get too caught up in the rah-rah and fail to execute. And then they start pointing fingers, oh, the refs or this or that. I was like, no. Quit bitching. Like, focus on what you're bringing to the table here. They didn't win this game. We lost it. Yeah. Like, let's be very clear. There's going to be days where you lose and they win. But more often than not, I think they're like, it's so easy to push to other people and make other people the problem. Like, what are you doing to prevent that?
That's an accountability element.
Keep your feet on the ground and just stay humble. And yes, I founded a company that's growing like weed right now. And it's doing some fantastic things. But that first person that walked in is still getting the same love and attention to the 5,551st person that will walk in today, right? Sure, there's more zeros in revenue and more zeros in expenses as well. But actually, the fundamentals of what took us from this to this is exactly the same. And it goes back to my stock market. Everyone's selling, oh, it's a sell-off, it's a sell. The fundamentals of Tesla haven't changed. In fact, I think they've even gotten better. As I've gotten to learn more about the company, like I just think this thing's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar business very quickly, if not 10, 20 trillion. And the same thing with other things. If the fundamentals are there, then scaling should be easy. You're just adding more zeros, adding more sites, adding more people. But if at any stage you forget the baseline, you deserve to lose.
I think it's a good place to jump in and wrap up is if you've got Sarah who's ready to come to Creative Cubes, ready to start a business, hasn't yet built the foundations that you're talking about, what advice are you going to give someone like Sarah to build those foundations to start off the business?
Yep. So I think Sarah's coming in as a newborn who doesn't know how to speak or walk or communicate.
That's that baby element there.
Yeah. So I think if Sarah has had a level of experience, or I met a tradie the other day at our East Melbourne site. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, yeah, you're the Creative Cubes guy, right? I was like, yes. He's like, hey, I want to do this. I was like, just don't stop. The energy that you have today, the excitement that you want to go and do to pursue, don't stop that. Just stay on that course and keep doing that. And if for whatever reason that flame goes out, pivot. It's okay. And he said he'd failed like 3 or 4 times, maybe more. I was like, man, that makes you more employable. It makes you more, it'll make you more successful in the future as well, right? I think that I remember raising my first venture fund or venture round of funding, and Petlu was a dream. Mm. And then when I started the dog walking business, people were like, tell me about your failures. I was like, kind of haven't gotten any yet. And so he's like, you're not investable. So I think the harder you fall down, the harder you can bounce back up if you've got that in you. It takes a lot. Yeah. So I appreciate that, you gotten bitten, like you don't want to put your hand back there. But I think that actually, like David Goggins talks about callousing the mind. Yeah. Like you've just got to continue to move those feet forward. But sometimes it's like not now, or this is not the opportunity. And pivoting a business, like you look at the business like Slack, multi-billion-dollar, I think a $20 billion purchase by Benioff and his crew at Salesforce. That was just an internal product for a company that was building video games. And it was just a quick way for them to communicate internally while they got their work done. But they were trying to sell video games, and they're on their last legs. And I think they were almost in liquidation, and they're like, what have we got to sell here? And it's like, well, we just got this thing. We call it Slack. And it's like, boom. Do you know what I mean?
The pivot.
So like, yeah, these guys tried to sell video games, end up selling one of the best communication tools in business, in my opinion. My beautiful wife will say, 2 ears, 1 mouth. So I'll leave you with this. Listen twice as much as you speak. Sarah, was it?
Sarah.
The example?
Yeah.
Listen twice as much as you speak, because if you can listen, not just hear, but listen to the people in front of you, whether it's a customer, a prospect, a colleague, someone else on the pod here right now, if you just listen, everything that they are seeking, i.e. your target audience, is they're going to tell you everything because they want it. But if your ego is too much in the way and you can't hear what they're saying, maybe you deserve to lose the game by 2 points.
What an incredible wrap up, Tobi.
That was bang.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today, and so many valuable pieces for taking away there. A final little statement, any book you're reading at the moment that we should recommend to the audience?
Delivering Happiness is sort of like my baseline. So the late Tony Hsieh, founder of Zappos and many other companies, by the way, he wrote a book, and that's what infected me with the happiness team. I love that. I'm not reading at the moment because I've read it 2 decades ago. I'm a huge pod listener, so depending on who you are, what floats your boat, there's just so much great content out there, and I use the time in my car to absorb content, whether it's an ebook, or audiobook, or a pod. There's a lot.
Amazing. Much like this. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us in the Leadr Lab. We hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did bringing it to you.
We have plenty of inspiring leaders and their stories to share. Ensure you don't miss these episodes by subscribing wherever you're listening to this. Links to today's guest are in the show notes, and you can find links to our socials there too.